Ever since the invention of flying, pilots have been instructed to preserve in some small corner of their aviator's toolbox the concept that maybe, just maybe, something will cause them to land at some point in the future in a manner and at a location not of their choosing. U.S. Airways. It's safe to say that Captain Chesley Sullenberger's amazing forced landing of his Airbus A320 in the Hudson River is the most well-known forced landing in history. However, from the dawn of flight, pilots have been instructed to always harbor the hope that one day, maybe, just maybe, circumstances may force them to land in a manner and location that they do not like. Even fixed-wing pilots perform it, but without a real runway. It's more of an emergency interruptus drill that is never completed. Auto-rotations to the ground are a thrilling technique helicopter pilots practice. The best airplane emergency landings in history, big and little, brave and embarrassed, clever and just plain lucky, are listed below by Aviation History. This is the part 3 of the 3 incredible emergency plane landings. On one wing and a prayer. Zivi Nedivai, an Israeli Air Force pilot, was practicing air combat maneuvers on May 1, 1983, over the Negev Desert, dogfighting a difficult A-4 Skyhawk that was acting as the aggressor. Unfortunately, Nedivai was plummeting through its altitude as the Skyhawk turned around, making it impossible for either pilot to see the other. The resulting collision completely severed the right wing of the F-15, tearing it off from root to tip. The A-4 exploded in a blaze, but the pilot made a successful ejection. Nedivai instructed his instructor in the back seat to get ready to eject when the F-15 quickly went nose down and spun. Fortunately, Nedivai took the one action that might have saved the aircraft. He pushed the power levers through the afterburner gate. The speed stabilization allowed him to control the half aircraft. Nedivai, who outranked the instructor, was nevertheless advised to exit the aircraft, but he refused because he believed he could land it. He later acknowledged, "I probably would have ejected if I realized what exactly had happened, but a massive fuel spray shooting out of the right wing root completely concealed the area where the wing would have been, making it impossible for Nedivai or his wingman to notice that it was gone." After flying the F-15 for about 10 minutes back to the closest IAF desert base, Nedivai discovered that in order to prevent an uncontrollable roll, he had to maintain the approach speed at approximately 260 knots, which is more than double the aircraft's typical landing speed. Although the F-15 touched down at wing level, it was moving so quickly that when its emergency tailhook tangled with a snubbing cable a third of the way down the runway, it tore off the fighter. Nearly 20 feet from the runway's end, Nedivai came to a stop and spun around in his seat to shake the instructor's hand. For the first time, he realized the right wing was missing. To view a video about the landing on YouTube, click here. According to reports, Nedivai was demoted for ignoring his instructor's order to eject, then instantly promoted for saving his airplane, which was fixed and back in the air 2 months later. When the only flight control you have is throttles. The safe touchdown of a nearly unmanageable Airbus A300 at Baghdad International Airport on November 22, 2003, following its collision with a shoulder-fired missile, is regarded by air transport pilots as one of the most amazing emergency landings ever. Within a minute of the missile impact at 8,000 feet on climb out, the A300, a DHL cargo flight, had completely lost all 3 of its hydraulic systems, rendering its ailerons, spoilers, elevators, rudder, and flaps immovable. It was burning and rapidly leaking fuel. If the flight had continued another 8 minutes, the main spar of the left wing is thought to have burned through. Captain Eric Janot had seen a presentation by retired United pilot Al Haynes at a flight safety class not long before the event. Haynes had experienced a similar total hydraulic failure in a DC-10 in Sioux City, Iowa. It was a lesson that Janot took down for later use that Haynes and his crew had learned how to thrust vector the airplane, power increased on one wing engine or the other for yaw control, power forward or back evenly on both for ascent or descent. Along with First Officer Steve Michaelson, Flight Engineer Mario Rofail also made a significant contribution to the rescue effort. The large left outboard wing tank had overflowed with fuel, and the left inboard tank was fast leaking. If the left engine had stopped, even temporarily, the sudden asymmetric thrust would have brought the aircraft to its destiny. Rafael had to act swiftly and accurately to cross-feed fuel from the right wing in a way that wouldn't contribute to the leakage but would feed the left engine. The bus started porpoising and rolling as much as 30 degrees left and right as soon as the flight controls failed. Rafael swiftly lowered the airplane's landing gear, which slowed and stabilized it. The pilots developed their thrust vectoring abilities in about 10 minutes, at which point they began an approach back to Baghdad. In fact, they had improved their aircraft control to the point where they could climb away and line up with a new runway if the approach failed. Although the plane rolled off the runway and onto the ground next to it, they successfully touched down this time. They started to flee the scene after the A300 had halted and the crew had left the cockpit, but accident workers stopped them. They were surrounded by an unexplored minefield. Fill her up. A BBD-5J, a tiny, single-seat microjet, was being flown by professional aerobatic and film pilot J.W. Corky Fornoff on a spring Saturday in 1975 to a NASA conference of space shuttle subcontractors in Washington, D.C., where the aircraft was to be showcased. Fornoff's watermelon-sized French TRS-18 turbojet, which was powering the aircraft, abruptly lost all oil pressure while level at 11,500 feet over North Carolina. Given that he was unsure of what lay beyond the solid cloud layer beneath him, he turned off the engine and spun the craft toward it. Fornoff was able to line up with Interstate 95 for a landing thanks to the fact that he emerged from the shadows approximately 800 feet above a dense pine forest. He also noticed Interstate 95 several miles to the west. Due to the heavy traffic, he momentarily thought about landing on a Mayflower moving van, but decided against it because he got a vision of the Roadrunner approaching an overpass. Fornoff still had plenty of speed, and he recalls cruising by a Cadillac while being waved at by the driver and approaching a pickup truck pulling a boat. The driver simply slowed down and waved me by as I approached from behind and gestured that I wanted to move in ahead of them. He was as cool as could be, whatever he was smoking. Fornoff gently touched down, ascended a hill, and then descended to an exit ramp. Fornoff utilized the rest of the bead's momentum to roll up to the pump island, triggering the small rubber ding-ding hose in the process. At the bottom of the exit was a mini-mall and a Sunoco gas station. Fornoff recalled that the station employee was resting at the doorway when they had a good 15 seconds of eye contact before he asked, "Is this candid camera?" Corky piloted a BD-5J in the James Bond movie Octopussy, where his most impressive feat involved launching the microjet through a door and out the opposite end of a hangar. However, the highway landing experience was also incorporated into the story. Bond, Roger Moore, pulls into a petrol station when the bead runs out of fuel and tells the slack-jawed worker, "Fill her up, please." Canadian wing walkers, 2nd Lieutenant Alan McLeod, who accomplished a daring crash landing while perched on the wing of his Armstrong Whitworth F.K.8 single-engine bomber, was only 18 years old when he received the Victoria Cross during World War I. He adjusted the F.K.8 so the fire streamed clear of his equally wounded rear gunner after being licked by flames from its burning gas tank and was hit 5 times by assaulting Fokker Dr. I triplanes. He was able to crash land the aircraft close enough to the British lines so that he could drag his gunner behind him as he crawled to safety. When McLeod was 17, the military finally accepted him after he had applied when he was just 14. In less than 2 months, he gained his wings after soloing in 5 days. He engaged in multiple dogfights with German aircraft and shot down one of their observation balloons during his brief stint in battle, which was impressive for a bomber-slash-reconnaissance plane. On March 27, 1918, as McLeod and Lieutenant A.W. Hammond prepared to bomb a German artillery installation, they were ambushed by a Fokker Dr. I. Hammond was able to shoot it down with the assistance of McLeod's maneuvering, but then they came under attack from 7 more triplanes. Before a bullet punctured his fuel tank and ignited the large plane, Hammond shot down 2 more enemies. In his citation for the Victoria Cross, McLeod is credited with having climbed out onto the left bottom wing and by side-slipping sharply kept the flames to one side, so enabling the observer to continue firing until the ground was reached. A sideslip is not feasible without the use of the rudder controls, which McLeod couldn't have accessed from his position on the wing, and so the tale has been passed down to us. Talvez ainda no cockpit, McLeod fez o controle cruzado de aeronave slide. A deflexo direita do leme po terceiro mentira quando ele subiu na asa devido aos controles rudimentares e rígidos. Seja qual for o caso, o jovem piloto canadense era tão habilidoso que ele e Hammond sobreviveram ao acidente controlado enquanto operavam. Additionally, este não é o único exemplo de piloto errante de Primeira Guerra Mundial. Uma Coliseo area com membro de SU Esquadro de RAF durante combate tenso 5 de setembro de 1918, dixo o neozelandês Keith Caldwell com S.E.5 a dificilmente controlável. Caldwell restage para fora de cabine para essa escrita quando o avião estava prestes a cair, segurando suporte de cabana com a mão esquerda e operando a coluna de controle com a direita. Ele saltou das fortificações britânicas, do algumas cambalhotas no chão e finalmente caiu uma trincheira onde pu formalmente para usar o telefone. Caldwell sobreviveu à guerra e continua a servir na RNZAF durante a Segunda Guerra Mundial. Stephen Wilkinson, collaborator frequente, teve SU único pauso de emergência mais de 3.000 horas no assento do piloto logo após decolar à noite do condado de Westchester bimotor Cessna 310 a caminho do aeroporto Kennedy. Ele solicitou uma abordagem direta no JFK depois de perceber o óleo escorrendo de uma das nacelles devido a uma tampa de óleo inadequadamente segura, apenas para ser informado. Não seria melhor voltar para White Plains, que EU mostrou apenas 4 milhas atrás de você. EU estava pronto para voar por Long Island Sound com motorcom defeito, diz Wilkinson, Embora a aterrissagem e a decolagem tenham ocorrido sem incidentes, ele admite, se bem que seria mau piloto uma emergência. Minha tendência é ter visão de túnel e uma sensação instantânea de idiotez.